This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below.
Something interesting just happened, and I think it should be interesting for the Cleveland Browns because the Jets have decided that they're going to part ways with Dalvin Cook, which makes him available for the Cleveland Browns. Now, since the Browns are dealing with a ton of injuries, there have been a lot of players over the hill, older players that people have been clamoring for that the Browns get. Justin Houston and Ndamukong Suh, you name a dude, the Browns have probably suggested. Jarvis Landry is another one that people have wanted as well. And at this point in the season, it is the points where you want to get one of those guys. I don't think Jarvis Landry, like we'll just start with that whole conversation. I don't think the Browns should go after Jarvis Landry, and I don't think the Browns will go after Jarvis Landry. And it's not because I don't think he could play still. I think he'll be fine if he could play. I just think the issue with Jarvis is that he's been on the couch all season. And it's not like a Joe Flacco thing to where like you can get him ready in like week 10 and he can play by week 12. Like the playoffs are about to start. It's just too late to sign somebody who hasn't played yet. Even with Ndamukong Suh, it's a similar type thing where it's like kind of late to sign somebody who hasn't played yet. But Dalvin Cook is different in my opinion. And I 100% think the Cleveland Browns should go after Dalvin Cook for multiple reasons. Now, the first thing that people are going to say when I say that, they're either going to agree or they're going to disagree with that statement. Probably going to agree because Dalvin Cook has been a good running back in the NFL in very similar systems to what the Cleveland Browns run and could be good for this team. You might disagree because you're like, hey, look, the run game issues aren't really up to the running back. It's not been Jerome Ford's fault. It's really been the issue of other players not playing well in the run game, not being in rhythm, not necessarily because of an individual running back. And some of y'all might want Pierre Strong to continue to get carries, or whatever camp that you're in, you might want that to be the case. But I think Dalvin Cook is 1,000% something you should go after. The main reason I feel like Dalvin Cook is 1,000% something you should go after is simply because Dalvin Cook has been a very good running back up until last year. Like, I understand that you can look at his numbers this year and they're not great at all. His numbers are pretty abysmal this year. He has had played in 15 games. He started and won 67 rushing attempts for 214 yards on 3.2 yards per carry. And I don't even believe he has a touchdown this year. He does not have a receiving touchdown and he has no rushing touchdowns. But the year previous, he was an 1,100 yard rusher on 4.4 yards per carry with 2 receiving touchdowns and 8 rushing touchdowns. He was a very serviceable running back in a spot where he could play efficiently in a system that he knows. Also, when it comes to attempts, he doesn't have a ton of attempts on him. Only 2 seasons, only 4 seasons where he's gone over 200 rushing attempts. 1 season where he's gone over 300. I just don't think Dalvin Cook is cooked. Like, I think he has a little bit more left to give you. And if you're the Cleveland Browns, with your run game issues, you want a running back who can do what? A running back who can break tackles. Like, that is a big factor in why the running game hasn't looked the same as it used to with Nick Chubb. Mainly because, one, it's not Nick Chubb running the football anymore. We all kind of understand that part of it. But another thing that factors into this is the fact that Nick Chubb could break tackles. You know who can't break tackles on a consistent basis? Any of the Browns running backs that they have had this year. And look, if you're wondering if Dalvin Cook can still break tackles and get yards after contact, sure, he's only had 214 rushing yards this year. 148 of them or after contact. He's still somebody who can finish through contact and play through contact. Now, he might not be the athlete that he used to be. I don't even think that that's true because, again, we're talking about somebody who's 27 right now. I think he's still as good as a running back as he's been. And if he's put in the right system, if he's put in the right plays, if he has the right team around him, he can be just as good. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of a running back version of Joe Flacco, right? Joe Flacco was getting passed around the league, moved around, jumped around, thrown around the league, and he wasn't able to find a system that fit him and be in a system that made sense with the team that's made sense and the team that's winning games. And we didn't see the best out of Joe Flacco because of that, right? From 2018 to about 2022, he was kind of lost in the shuffle. I look at Dalvin Cook and I see a player who's in a similar situation, albeit not as long as Joe Flacco, where I look at him and go, well, the yards at the contact are still the same. The yards per carry have gone down, but he's not running the type of scheme that you wanted him to run in the first place. Like, he's running something very different than what he used to run in Minnesota, especially. Like, it's just different than what they're asking him to do. And then it's also different because they're asking him to be the third man in a rotation because Breece Hall plays really well. If he comes to Cleveland, he can be more of a feature back. I like Jerome Ford, but I think Jerome Ford's much better as a piece, not the main piece, the main running back. I like Kareem Hunt, but Kareem Hunt's better in specific situations. Dalvin Cook can be your first down, second down running back. And I think he'll be very good at those things. I think it makes a ton of sense for the Browns to go after Dalvin Cook. Now, there's a question about, will the Browns go after Dalvin Cook? This is one that's kind of interesting, right? Because Dalvin Cook plays running back. We know this team's history with running back has been kind of up and down. Like, some years it seems like they really value the position. Some years it seems like Andrew Berry could care less about the position. You also have to ask yourself questions like, hey, was Dalvin Cook released out of a simple courtesy of Dalvin Cook from the New York Jets? Or was he released because he was being a legitimate issue? And if him being an issue is a legitimate problem, do you have everything in place to make sure that that doesn't become something that affects the team? I don't know the answers to those questions. That's a question for Andrew Berry to answer. But what I do know is that the Browns running back rotation leaves a little bit to be desired. It leaves a little bit to be desired when it comes to finding somebody who can fill a feature back role. It leaves a lot to be desired when we're talking about running backs who can have yards after contact. Like, Pierre Strong is awful at that. It leaves a little bit to be desired when it comes to straight up experience, right? Like, Kareem Hunt's the only one with a ton of experience in there. And even his experience is kind of limited because outside of the 3 years he's had in Kansas City, he's never really been a feature back because he got into that situation that and landed him with the Cleveland Browns and kind of on this dual role with Nick Chubb. So you want more experience. You want somebody who's been a proven. You want somebody who you could trust to get that football, not fumble it, to make the right decisions and potentially break a couple tackles if need be. And I think Dalvin Cook is really the right guy for that. I think he's primed for a breakout. You look at what he was doing the years previous, right? 2019, my bad. He had 1,100 yards in 2019, 1,500 yards in 2020, and then he had 1,100 in 2021 and 1,100 yards in 2022. You look at the yards per contact, he had his best year yards after contact last season. I see no reason why he can't continue to do it. I think his issues have simply been he signed with the team that didn't make sense. He got into a bad fit, and now he's kind of a victim of that bad fit. But I think Dalvin Cook can come here in Cleveland as a free agent and really be somebody who makes a difference for this team because he can run some of the stuff that Nick Chubb used to do. He could do some of the break tackle stuff that Nick Chubb used to do. And he could just give your run game a consistent punch. And also it gives the guys who are blocking for the run game something to believe in because like, hey man, when you're blocking for Dalvin Cook, it's going to feel different than blocking for Nick Chubb. I mean, not blocking for Nick Chubb, than blocking for Jerome Ford because you truly believe and know that Dalvin Cook can be one of the best running backs in the NFL. You've seen him do it before. It's similar to Joe Flacco, right? The wide receivers were able to step up their game when Joe Flacco was in there because they had a legitimate belief that Joe Flacco can take you where you need to be because we have seen Joe Flacco take a football team where they need to be. We didn't care about where he was or what year it was and what year that he did it. It was just the fact that he did it before. And you can tell yourself and believe in that. And that changes a lot of things like effort, like your own ability to catch the football. Like it just changes these things because you have a more serious belief in the person that you're doing this work for. And that can be the same thing for the run game, right? And when it's not Nick Chubb and you're throwing out Jerome Ford and Pierre Strong, it don't feel serious. If Dalvin Cook's running that ball, regardless of the fact of what Dalvin has done over the last year, it feels a little more serious. Now, there's been an issue. Dalvin's fumbled the ball more this year than he has in previous years. He has 2 fumbles this year. He had 4 fumbles the year prior. He's never been like the most secure holder of the football, but I think that those sacrifices are sacrifices that you're willing to take because how many teams are in the position to plug in a feature back like the Cleveland Browns? And I think Dalvin Cook would make a ton of sense here. I think he would be rejuvenated being in a situation in Cleveland where the Browns are legitimately playing for something. They legitimately need him. And I think the team would be rejuvenated having a presence like Dalvin Cook in that locker room. I think this would be a good fit for both sides. So the Browns should do it. But let me know what you think in the comment section down below. I'm really interested to know what you guys think. But y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.